Good morning, everyone. It's Nathan Brett here, and welcome to your next coaching session. Today, we're going to talk about property management process controls. But before we move on to process controls, I just wanted to do a quick review and recap from our last session. What we talked about in our last session is getting capacity right in our business. And we gave you some models around that, the first of which was the 4-quadrant model. We made some suggestions around how you can measure capacity, which really takes away that age-old argument around how many properties can a property manager manage. It also abolishes some other myths in the industry around landlords and tenants wanting to speak to one person. And really what we're starting to get you to think about is changing your business from potentially a people-dependent business to a systems-driven one. We gave you some tools to think about, and the disclaimer from last session, which remains this session as well, includes that what we'd love you to do is to actually not make any structural changes in your business until we've completed the session after this one. So by now, the leaders in the business should be thinking about, do we have the right skill sets in the organisation? We should be getting quite clear around capacity in the different quadrants and how to structure the blue quadrant in particular with relation to ingoings, outgoings, routines and repairs and maintenance. What we want to do ultimately is reduce the property manager's exposure from being a mile wide and an inch deep, and we want to bring that back towards being an inch wide and a mile deep. And of course, the mile deep comes with the customer service delivery as well, which creates stickiness of clients and allows your business to grow. So that's where you should be thinking about, and certainly the implementation work and the tools that we gave to you from the last session will have helped you to nut out right down to the micro jobs in the business. So that's all very well and good to say. Apply the 4-quadrant model, become a systems-driven business rather than a people-dependent business. But of course, this session is critical to the success of being systems-driven, and that's what we call property management process controls. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to give you some tools which many of our coaching clients over the years have installed into their business to make their lives easier around systems driving the business and not being people dependent. As you well know, these sessions are recorded, and you can certainly go back at any stage and re-watch the sessions as well. Our coaches will be in contact with you over the next week to check with you on the implementation work and of course to see what questions you may have. You have access to our coaching team between the sessions as well. So if you have any questions at all, please contact us on our 1300 number and we'll be delighted to help you. If you have any questions during today's session, please type them into the question box, and Dee Robbins from our office is helping to moderate this session. We'll pause it a couple of times and see if we can answer any questions that might be asked. So let's get started on process control. Some of the feelings that you can expect from this session is a little bit of stress. So there might be some anxiety around exposure, because one of the things that we advocate fully at Real Estate Dynamics is to have a business that's fully transparent, open and accountable. So we're going to help you switch the floodlights on. And if that hasn't been a part of your business culture before, there may be a little bit of stress or anxiety around that. There could be a feeling of overwhelm. So, to implement the process controls, you'll certainly have to change the way that you look at data, that you look at some of the things in your business. Of course, many of our clients tell us there's a sense of calm as well. And over the time, once these process controls are implemented, what tends to happen is that our clients start to trust them more and more. When they're first installed into a business, they might look and feel a little bit different and the trust isn't there. But over a period of time, what happens is the trust increases to the point where many of our coaching clients historically have said, we don't know how we've operated for so long without having these installed in our business. So be patient on yourselves. It's new, it's different, and we're going to help you by coaching you through this process. In most businesses that we've coached over the years, when we first visit, we've seen very little evidence of process control or a process control environment. What we mean by a process control environment is to have systems that reconcile, double check tasks in your business and act as early warning detectors of possible mistakes. The control system environment that we manage is a macro process. So for example, the process in your organisation that makes sure all of the big rocks between a vacate and leased process is managed and completed over a certain period of time. So that's a macro process. Of course, we suspect and expect that you're already working with checklists that will manage the micro process. So that in the micro process, that new tenancy sign up or that tenant vacating is managed individually. So that's the micro, but the control systems are the macro, which will manage all of those for a period of time. I'm going to open the first diagram that we have available for you today, which I think may help to understand the control system environment that we're talking about. So I'll just open that one now. It's not what I wanted to open, just bear with me, folks, sorry. Okay, this is our control system environment. And in a nutshell, what it tells us is that in the middle of your organisation, the middle of your business is your trust accounting software, which is the mothership. The problem though lies, one of the problems that exists, I should say, is that how do you know without some sort of reconciliation or control system process in your business that the data that's in your trust accounting software is accurate? So that poses a bit of a question. Unless you're comparing that data to something in your business, you actually don't know 100% if that's correct or not. So some of the big rocks that sit around the mothership are control boards, and we'll talk about those a little bit today, and certainly they will form part of your implementation work. Your document control, so around letters, forms and checklists. You've got standards and benchmarks and KPIs, which we'll talk about in the next fortnightly session. You've got specialist apps. So offices that we work with often have leasing software like Inspect Real Estate. They might have maintenance software like Maintenance Manager. They have CRMs like My Desktop or whatever it is that you're using. So all of these sit outside the mothership and need to be reconciled somehow. Of course, we've got our portals such as realestate.com and Domain, where rental properties are listed that are becoming vacant or are vacant. And then we've got all of these documents that are in progress in property management. We have lease renewals that are waiting to go out. We've got lease renewals in progress. We've got invoices that are sitting somewhere that need to be approved and paid. We've got new managements that need to be checked before they're data managed or file managed. We've got tenant sign-out packs waiting for tenants to move out who haven't actually moved out yet. We've got tenant sign-up packs who've been approved but haven't done the sign-up ceremony yet, and a bunch of other documents that sit in progress. So we're going to give you some tools and some implementation work to help you bring all of this stuff together in property management to make it easy to be able to reconcile, to find stuff very quickly in the business, and most importantly, be a systems-driven business that can truly be part of a continuing conversation with any landlord or tenant. If that isn't in place, then the only option that you have is to be a people-dependent business, which from our last session you may recall involves carrying way too much stuff in your head. What we want is to be able to get the stuff out of your head and get it into part of the control system environment. So here's a bit of a clue. I want you to start thinking about what control systems you have in your business And I want you to start thinking about this question, compared to what? So when we think about that question, we think about data generally. So what I'm seeing in our trust accounting software, if I don't compare it to something, compared to what, how do I know that it's accurate? If it's not accurate, it's not bulletproof, and there's a chance that, that things can go wrong. Some examples of some symptoms of a lack of control system, a lack of control system environment can be tenants rocking up into the office to hand in their keys at the end of their tenancy, but no one actually knows that they're vacating. Another example might be that a tenant's waiting in reception to do their sign-up ceremony before they move into the property, and suddenly someone in the office realises that the new or entry condition report hasn't been completed. So that puts stress and pressure. Another example could be, pardon me, that there's been a mistake made in the office, and if they have a muck-up, fix-up policy, they might decide to not charge the landlord 2 or 3 months worth of management fees. But we've been into offices where, in some cases, that management fee never gets reapplied, and it could be 4 or 5 years down the track where the agency hasn't actually collected commission. So if any of these look or feel familiar to you, we're going to help you to overcome those today. The first control system that I want to talk about is a vacate to leased control system. Now, when we talked last week about the 4-quadrant model, and you're certainly getting your head around that now, if you think about all of the steps from when a tenant gives notice, or we give them notice, right through to coaching them out of the property, looking for new tenants, leasing appointments, finalising the old tenant's bond, processing new applications, getting the landlord's approval and coaching them through the leasing process, signing up the new tenant, getting the condition report sorted, getting the property rental ready, lodging the bond, and everything else that goes with that process, you will have the green quadrant, the blue quadrant, and the red quadrant involved in that process if you've applied the 4-quadrant model correctly. Therefore, what we need to consider is some sort of system where, at a glance, anyone in the business can look and see what the status of that vacate to lease process is. So let me introduce you to the first control system or control board that many of our coaching clients have, which is the vacate to lease control system. Sorry, just bear with me for 1 second and I'll pull that up. Okay, so now we should be able to see this spreadsheet. So we've put it in a spreadsheet format. Many of our offices now use this as a shared Excel spreadsheet or Google Doc in their office. And what they do is they have a series of flat screens in the office, and one of the flat screens houses this information. You see, the reason that many are using flat screens is because they're actually cheaper than many whiteboards now. So it's a shared document that everyone in the business has access to, and that's important to know from their desktop. But somewhere in the office visibly, whether it's on a whiteboard or whether it's on a flat screen, this document will be up so everyone can know what the status is of that particular vacate to leased property. So let's just go through the example that we have here, and you can see what we're doing now is we're encouraging our clients to actually fill in the quadrant colour that's responsible for that particular column. So in this example, we've got a property at 127 Glengarry Road at Lucinda that is due to vacate on the 29th of the 3rd, 2017. That's managed by the red quadrant in the business, and shortly we'll show you where they're going to get that paperwork from centrally in the business. They start to data manage this in the red quadrant. So in their trust accounting software, they put the vacate date in and they start to merge the tenant sign-out information. So that's where this process will begin for the red quadrant. In this example, it's the green quadrant that confirms that the tenant's vacating with that the tenant is vacating, and we're going to get our skates on and re-let the property. So that would be a leasing consultant in this particular example. They've had a conversation, they can see it on the list here, and they know every day part of their responsibility is to ring all landlords whose tenants are vacating and set them up for the releasing process. Then what happens once that's confirmed? Red quadrant manages the upload of that property onto the portals or rent list. So the date there is confirmed when that is done as well. Then we've got the date that the keys are returned into the office. And again, in this example, it's the red quadrant at reception that checks in the keys. So the 29th of the 3rd is when the keys were due. The 29th of the 3rd is when the keys were returned in the office. They've also, by this stage, perhaps organised the sign-out ceremony, and we'll talk a little bit about that in this coaching stream. So what the red quadrant in this example has done is gone into the blue quadrant's calendar, and in the blue quadrant's calendar are chunks of time where the property manager is available to do certain tasks. One might be the sign-out ceremony, as we've suggested. The second would be the actual vacate inspection. Now, in our session next week, we'll be talking about standards, and the standards will help to drive this process as well. One of the standards you may adopt, for example, would be that all vacate inspections are carried out the following working day after the tenant hands their keys in. So knowing that standard, for example, if I was a red quadrant person in this organisation and they're due on the 29th, the keys, then I'm booking it in on the 30th. In that blue quadrant calendar, where there are batches of time available for them to do checkout inspections. Of course, then the tenancy application process, this might be green or red depending on how you're applying the 4-quadrant model. What we want to know is the status. So this might have been received. We've received an application, it's in progress, it's been approved. Whatever the status is that you choose to put in here, you can add in drop-down boxes and make it easy on yourself. When the approval date has occurred, so again, that might be a green or a red quadrant. When the tenancy is due to start is red quadrant. When we've confirmed with the landlord of Glengarry Road that the tenancy is right to go and we're up and running. When the condition report is completed, so again, the red quadrant, I will have a look on file and see whether it's an existing condition report that just needs to be updated or whether it's a new one that we need to do from scratch. And then I will book it in the appropriate calendar, whether that's a green quadrant or blue quadrant, whatever that looks like in your business. You can see here, this one's just an update. So if that's the case, then it will be the blue quadrant who's doing the checkout inspection, the final checkout inspection will naturally update the new condition report. Again, property compliance completed. So this might be in the blue quadrant, and what we need to make sure is that depending on your state legislation, that the relevant property compliance is carried out. That might be smoke alarms or safety switches, corded windows and blind swimming pools, whatever that looks like. The next step, of course, is the tenant sign-up date. So if it's the green quadrant, if it's someone in leasing, or the blue quadrant in your business who are doing the new tenant sign-up ceremony, then that will go into the person's calendar. And again, they've got chunks of time in their calendar dedicated to being free to do these tasks. So the red quadrant can simply go in and book this for them. They don't have to worry about it. And therefore, you're giving the rest of the business maximum leverage through the red quadrant. Then, of course, the bond refund when that's completed. And what we want to have a look at here in the red quadrant is to make sure that the bond's been finalised and what the turnaround time for the bond is. So we can start to measure bond turnaround time in terms of number of days. Now, that number of days is simply between the vacate date and when the bond was finalised. And we can start looking at an average and make sure that that's going to be consistent with the standards that we will set with you in our next coaching session. VTT is vacant turnaround time, which is the number of days that property is vacant. If you're using leasing software such as Inspect Real Estate, it will give you this information on the dashboard. If you're not, you can simply calculate it for each property. So from the day that the property was vacant to the day the new tenant moves in, how many days has that been? And we'll start measuring the VTT, or vacant turnaround time, for each property. This is good data for leasing, by the way. So just coming back and thinking, what would it look like if you've got a flat screen in your office and this is up and you've got all the properties that are due to vacate, and the properties that then subsequently have a relet. Now, of course, that's not consistent with every property who has a vacate or a lease. We might have a situation where we're having a landlord moving into a property and, for example, obviously there's not going to be a leased component on there. So what we might do is change the colour and choose a colour to easily highlight the fact that that one doesn't have a reletting component. Or vice versa, we might take on a property that is vacant from a landlord who's handing us the property and therefore doesn't actually have a checkout or bond or vacate mechanism, but we're just doing the leasing side of that. And we might choose another colour just so that visually and quickly we can see exactly what's going on with that particular property. What our coaching clients find who have this set up in their office is that anyone walking past can see exactly what's going on with the status of the property at everyone's workstations. If it's a shared Excel document or Google Doc, we can have this document pulled up and see exactly what the status is of each property. So therefore, everyone in the business can be part of a continuing conversation with a landlord. Now, some examples, obviously, it might be a red quadrant person in your business speaking to the landlord of Glengarry Road about a bill that needs to be paid, or a rental payment. And then, of course, the landlord is saying, well, you know, what's going on with the tenancy application? And we can have a look immediately and say, well, that one's been approved, and you'll be getting a call very shortly from the leasing consultant or the property manager, just confirming that that's the case. We can see, and therefore we can be part of a continuing conversation. So that's one of the first benefits of having that control system installed in your business. The second benefit is that you can actually start to use these control systems to reconcile certain things in your office. So many of our coaching clients, before their mid and end of month processes run, or even on a weekly basis, will make sure that every property that's been rented in their office has a let fee that's been applied. So they will check to make sure that that has been done properly. The other benefits, I guess, are that we can use that vacate to lease control board to reconcile the vacancy list in the trust accounting software and make sure that, that the vacancy list in the trust accounting software matches all the tenants that are due to vacate here. We can reconcile it with what's on the listing portals, because unless we're not reletting the property for some reason, all of those properties that are due for a vacate should be back on the rent list and ready to go. So it's those sorts of reconciliations that are really important to happen on a weekly basis. What we would prefer for you to do is, first of all, get these control systems up and running, and then our coaches will help you with the reconciliation process on a weekly basis. It takes about 20 minutes eventually, once you're up and running, to carry out a reconciliation process with all of those different areas. And what that means moving forward is the worst thing that can possibly happen in the business is something gets missed for 7 days, or 6 days actually. And most leaders in organisations are happy to take that risk. So that's the first one, the vacate to lease control board. Dee, I'll just pause there for a moment. Have we any questions at this stage?
At this stage, we don't have any questions.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Bear with me. Great. The next control board that you may wish to implement into your business is new and lost managements and a daily running tally. So let me just introduce you to that document now so that we can have a look at that. Again, many offices use this document on a flat screen. They've converted it into Excel. So at any given time in the month, they can find out what new managements have been signed up and what source, where they have come from, what lost managements are sitting there and the source, why did we lose them, and of course the daily running tally of properties under management. So that should match our property report in our trust accounting software, or it's certainly come very close. And we can manage by exception as well. So in this example, there's 123. If we had 124 properties sitting in our trust accounting system in our property report, the extra one might be because we haven't been able to delete that because there's an outstanding transaction that needs to happen before that gets archived. Therefore, we know, and what we end up having is data intelligence around what sits in our trust accounting software matches what we've got on our control system. So, of course, for the month, the new managements can be added, the lost managements can be added, and every time there's a change in a new one or a lost one, the running tally of managements changes as well. It's also a good visual that you can reconcile with the new management pack. So everything up there should have a new management pack that's waiting to be archived. Everything that's been lost should have a loss management pack centrally in the business, and that they're waiting to be lost, whatever that may be as well. If you charge marketing or advertising, this is a great control system to make sure that those fees have been applied before your mid and end of month processing as well, or on a weekly basis to make sure they're all up and running depending on the size of your business. Of course, all these should also be on your portals. All the new managements that aren't already tenanted should be listed and ready to rock and roll on your portals. So now what we're starting to do is thinking about using these so that they're great visuals in the business, but also that we can reconcile to have data intelligence across our organisation. So that's the second one to think about, is the control system for new and lost business and a daily running tally. The third control system that I want to introduce you to is one that we suggest that is done monthly, and we call it the rent roll schedule. And let me just open this one up now so we can have a look at it. This should be incorporated into your end of month processing. So obviously those who are in the red quadrant and managing trust accounting would fully understand the work for mid and end of month or any disbursement process is done, on the days leading up to those pivotal times. So after end of month processing is done and after your archiving is done, what we would suggest out of your trust accounting software is to pull a report that has a list of your properties. The type could be in there as well, so that it could be commercial, house, unit, whatever that looks like in your trust accounting software. What the management fee is for that property exclusive of GST, so that's straight out of a field in your trust accounting software. What the weekly rent is for that property, and what the AMI is. And the AMI is your annual management income. And as Dee's listening, I might ask Dee to actually type the formula in so that we're all clear about how to work that out. And what the formula is your average, is the weekly rent, I should say, for that property, divided by 7 days, multiplied by 365 days of the year, multiplied by the management fee exclusive of GST. So if you charge 7% or 8% for that property exclusive of GST, that's what that would be. And of course, what you can do is put a formula in for that. So once again, that's your weekly rent divided by 7, multiplied by 365, multiplied by the management fee, and that gives you the annual management income. Or in other words, the amount of commission that you earn off that property per year. Now, once that is done and pulled into this schedule, we would then suggest that you sort the AMI from lowest to highest. The reason that we encourage you to do this is because any properties that have a 0 AMI sitting in there indicates we've got a problem. It means there's no weekly rent for that property or there's no management fee that's being charged. And what that will do is alert us to go and investigate or manage by exception and find out why that is the case. This will help you in those unlikely events, but it does happen, where you might have said to a landlord, look, we're going to put your management fee on zero because we've mucked up, and we'll do that for 2 or 3 months. So if we're running this monthly, what we can do is a double check to make sure that that will change from 0 to 8% or whatever it is that you charge at the appropriate time. Of course, there might be properties that the directors or family members own, and that might be okay to manage by exception. But it just helps us to find if there's any problems around the charging of the management fee or the charging of the rent with that particular property. So again, we would suggest that you think about implementing this control system into your business as part of your end of month processing procedure. Whoops, just bear with me. So I'll just pause there before I move on. Dee, any questions in relation to that?
Hi Nathan, I've got no questions about that at the moment, but I did put that formula in the chat box for everybody to see in the bottom right-hand corner. Fantastic.
Thank you for that. So there are a couple of the control systems that we certainly would encourage you to have in your business. What I'd like to do now is move on to our document and conversation management. In offices that we've been into over the years, documents can be spread all over an agency. And when I'm talking about documents, I'm talking about documents in progress. So the ones that are due but actually haven't needed to be used yet, like the tenants who've agreed to signing a tenancy agreement and have a sign-up appointment booked, but they actually haven't come into the office yet. We've got lease renewals, we've got invoices, we've got tenants due to move out. We've got a bunch of documents that sit in progress in property management. The problem is in a lot of agencies, these are spread all over desks between property management desks, and they're spread all over an office. When that's the case, it's hard to apply the 4-quadrant model, and you certainly don't have the option to be able to reconcile these and make sure that all the paperwork's ready to rock and roll. In some offices we've been into, there's in-trays stacked on property management desks the size of skyscrapers. There's those toaster racks that sit on everyone's offices. There's stuff sitting in drawers. There's stuff sitting in filing cabinets. There's stuff sitting in archive queues for electronic filing software. There's hard copy files, and really it's a really big mess in relation to documents. What we want to do is to put protocols or controls around these. One of the things that we really want to do is go and grab all of the documents in progress and make sure that they're centralised in an area in the office. That way, and certainly when we're thinking about where we're going to centralise them, if you're thinking of getting flat screens or whiteboards, they should be very close to that area to make it easy for you to reconcile. Let me just share the pigeonhole systems that we implement into our coaching clients' offices to make this process a lot easier. I'll just bring up these now, bear with me. This is what they look like. This is a good visual. So somewhere centrally in the office, close to your vacate to lease, your new and lost business, will be your pigeonholes. Now here's an example that has the labels on them. And here are examples of some of the labels that we would encourage you to think about. So where do offices get them from? Many offices have used IKEA or Officeworks to go and buy some flat packs. Other offices, depending on the look and the feel, might have cabinet makers in to build them. What it looks like is that when the pigeonholes are in and up and running and used as part of the control system environment, there's virtually nothing on any property manager's desk. All they've really got is one in tray, and they pull out of the pigeonhole what they're working on at the moment, and once that's done, they put it away and move on. So it serves a couple of purposes. It gets all the information into one area in the business, all the documents in progress, but it also helps us as property management people to chunk our work. We can pull out what we're working on, get through it, put it away and move on. So we've put some examples here for you. And what I would suggest is when you do get your pigeonholes is to use these labels or a version of them, but not make them too permanent in the first instance, because you will probably want to review them before you make a final decision. So use loose labels to start off with, and then eventually you can finalise them. And of course, we've applied some of the quadrant colours to help and visually make it easy to see who's responsible for that pigeonhole as well. So an example, we've got new management sitting in here, and this is marked red in this example. So whilst the business development person or people will be out signing up new business, their job is to probably attach a checklist and throw it in the pigeonhole so that the red quadrant can data manage that, get the new file set up, etc. Tenancy application. So that would sit in, the new management would sit in there until it's been data managed and then archived, and then it goes away. Tenancy applications, as they come into the business, they might sit in a pigeonhole, and the red quadrant manages, in this example, the processing of those, but then it's the green quadrant that actually gets it approved. Back to the red quadrant to do the sign up and make sure that that paperwork's pending, move-in paperwork, and in this example, they manage the return of the condition reports as well. When the new tenancy is complete and ready for filing, it may go into another pigeonhole, and again managed by the red quadrant a few times a week. What they'll do is grab those, archive them, and make sure they're all electronically filed. Vacating notices received. Again, it will start in the red quadrant. They'll manage the process by getting the sign-out packs ready. Keys returned, blue quadrant, for example, waiting on final inspection, and bonds waiting finalisation could be blue. Bonds that are due to be refunded are red, etc., etc. We've got notices here, tribunal, insurance claims, etc., etc. These are simply a guide for you to start using, but we think we've covered most of them in your business. And again, what they look like is, here are a few examples from our coaching clients' offices. This is what they end up looking like in your office. And all of the paperwork in progress will sit there, so there's nothing on anyone's desk. It will help you to get rid of those toaster racks, in trays, filing cabinet drawers. It will help you to eradicate, what else? Manila folders, lever arch folders. And certainly the other thing that we need to think about, which we'll talk about in just a moment, is the management of conversations and emails. So they're the pigeonholes. Will it feel a bit awkward when you first implement them and grab everything off everyone's desk and put them into a central place in your business? Yes, it will. Does it help you to become a systems-driven business? Absolutely. If you have a property management person who's away, who falls sick, who's on holidays, anyone can jump in and drive their job if all of the paperwork in progress is centralised, and if we have control systems that advocate a systems-driven business. So they're the pigeonholes. Our coaches will certainly help you with any questions as well. The other aspect that I want you to consider is the recording of your conversation and your email management. If we are truly systems driven, that means we need to be able to be part of a continuing conversation. That is, I should be able to come into your agency, jump in someone's seat, and take off from where they left off. And it's easy, it's seamless, and there's no stress involved around that. So the first thing I want you to think about is your conversation management. So what a lot of offices do is make sure that every attempted conversation, every attempted phone call, every actual phone call is recorded in the diary notes of their trust accounting software. Again, if we think back to the first model we displayed today, the mothership that sits in the middle of the business is the trust accounting software. So that helps us then to be able to pick up and carry on a conversation that a landlord or tenant may have had with another person in the business, And what we can do is just see what's going on and continue that conversation. So if you're not using diary notes effectively for every attempted call, every actual call in your business, it's something that you will need to do and draw a line in the sand and start doing it as a team. It is so important. The next thing to consider, of course, is email management. Now, again, this is up to you and what your business chooses. A lot of offices prefer to have the emails in the same mothership, in the diary notes as well, so that when you're looking and having a conversation with a landlord and tenant, you can see a phone conversation, then you can see an email conversation, and it's a nice, easy flow. Of course, others tend to use software such as FileSmart or any other electronic filing to make sure that all emails are archived as well. Whatever standards that you choose are absolutely fine, but just make sure that you have the standards and they're consistent across your business. That way, everyone can be part of a continuing conversation. What I will I'll throw a bit of caution to the wind, and I see this happen a lot as we do at Red in property management businesses, is in Outlook, seeing a subfolders in an inbox for every property that you manage or every landlord that you look after, or you might have subfolders for maintenance or for quotes or anything like that. And that can be replicated and duplicated across email accounts in the organisation. That is not a control system. That is not a systems-driven business, because what that means is, if I'm using D and I as an example at Red, and D's out of the office and I'm speaking with a landlord and I need to find that email communication, I have to go into D's Outlook to be able, or email account, to be able to effectively find that. I don't want to do that. I want to go into the mothership, whatever that is for you, and see that email there. So if you do have subfolders in your office, may I gently suggest that you draw a line in the sand, get all of those emails out of those subfolders into the mothership, whether that's your trust accounting software or your archiving system, electronic archiving system, so that everyone can access that. And that, in a nutshell, is the difference, I guess, between being people-dependent and systems-driven. People dependency relies me to pick up the phone and call another property manager in the business, walk across the office and have a conversation, interrupt people day in and day out. Systems-driven means I can go and find the information and the answers I need myself. And certainly, as property management people, it's always the case, isn't it, that we want to feel in control and not look foolish at any part or any stage of having a conversation with a landlord and tenant saying, I don't know. So that's it for conversation management and for, for email management. The last area that I want you to think about putting controls around is your file management also. Now, we've been into offices where this has been so overcomplicated that what we've seen evidence of is that every property they look after has a hard file in a filing cabinet. Now, I don't know about you, but most offices we go into, filing cabinets are pretty expensive real estate. You know, what we want to do is get rid of those and put more property management desks and more salespeople desks in the offices. So some offices we've been into, they'll have the hard files, and then they'll have an electronic filing system such as FileSmart or a number of others that are on the market. So stuff gets scanned, but it also gets hard filed. And then what they do is they've got a network drive, Z drive or G drive or whatever it's called in your business, and they've got every property they manage, and some stuff gets scanned there as well. And then they've got each property manager with subfolders in their inbox about properties or landlords that they look after. So some stuff gets filed there as well. The net situation is that no one can find anything in the business. Plus, there is a massive amount of time spent on duplication and replication, which is highly, highly inefficient. So I want you to think about this, and I can't give you the answers to this. This is something that you may just want to discuss with your auditor, who you can certainly get the best advice from. But I can tell you, at Real Estate Dynamics, we have seen many examples where there are no hard files and everything is document managed, electronically archived, and that's it. That's one space. It all goes in there. Everyone can find it. Everyone's got access to it, and the world's a beautiful place. We've got other offices that their auditors insist that the original hard copy of the management agreement and perhaps the current tenancy pack may also be hard filed. I'm not saying what's right and wrong, but I am certainly suggesting that there are tight controls around it so that you can be part of that continuing conversation. My personal belief is, sitting at the 27th of February in 2018, that anything that's hard filed is pretty archaic and certainly, certainly not up with the times. So think about that. Just before I move on, Dee, I'll just pause again if I may. Have we any questions?
Hi, Nathan. We don't have any questions around filing or conversation keeping.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So let me just review now some of the implementation work which our coaches will discuss with you to help you set up your control system environment. First of all, I'd really like you to start to understand how control systems set up properly will help you switch from people dependency to being a systems-driven business. So that original diagram that we showed with the mothership, your trust accounting software sitting in the middle, might be helpful to get your head around. It also helps, part of the implementation work is also to understand how that will drive transparency, accountability, and switch the floodlights on in your business. So everything's out in the open. Is that going to make some people feel nervous? Probably, but you will certainly get used to it. The second piece of implementation work is to implement the vacate to lease control system. Now, again, we've got that spreadsheet that's been designed. You may want to make some subtle or micro changes to that, but I would encourage every business to think about using that spreadsheet, having a shared Excel document that everyone can access, or Google Doc, whatever you want to use in the business, and have that also projected up onto a flat screen in your business. I would certainly, and let me actually, just while I've got you, let me show you what that looks like in one of the offices that we work with. So I'll just share this document here, and this is one of their flat screens. Now, they've got several, and you can't see all of the flat screens in the office at the moment, but under that flat screen is their pigeonhole. So they can see the status from vacate to leased. They've colour-coded it slightly differently and made it work for their business, but everyone in the organisation has access to that control system, plus it's highly visible, so anyone walking past or on the phone with a client can just look up there and know exactly what's going on. So that's an example of what that looks like. Of course, the same can be with your new and lost business and daily running tally. It's up to you how many flat screens you want to invest in, or whether your IT people can have one flat screen that runs a number of channels on the same screen. Certainly worthwhile investigating. If you use Inspect Real Estate, I would highly recommend that that's also highly visible in your office, and again, think about another flat screen. So most coaching clients that we've worked with for many years will have a series of about 3 or 4 flat screens, and what they have is vacate to leased on one, new and lost business with a daily running tally, Inspect Real Estate dashboard if they've got IRE, and on the 4th one, we are working at Real Estate Dynamics on our own KPI dashboard, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that next week. So that's that. I want you to implement your pigeonholes or your document in progress system. That will involve you either purchasing a flat pack or getting someone in to build them. And just remember the 2 warnings around this. First of all, make sure that your labels aren't too permanent in the first instance, because you may wish to change them. Second of all, I would strongly recommend that you get more pigeonholes, so more than you actually need, because you may wish to add additional ones down the track. Now, those pigeonholes should be located near the control systems, vacate to lease, new and lost business, etc., etc. So that's the next part. Setting protocols around your conversation management is the next big rock to implement. So where are your conversations recorded? Every attempted conversation, every actual conversation. Are they diary notes in your trust accounting software? And what is the standard around them? You know, I tried to call Dee Robbins on her mobile at this time. I couldn't get her, so I left a message. is an example of a well-written conversation diary note. The next is your email management. Where do the emails go? Do they go into FileSmart or whatever archiving, electronic archiving system you're using? Do they go into the diary notes as well in your trust accounting software? Where we don't want them to be is in individual folders in Outlook accounts, because no one else can access that except for you. The last, of course, is to set protocols and controls around your filing. So are you going to have a business where everything that comes in is electronically filed and you have no hard copies? Are you going to be a business that has the, everything's electronically filed, but you may retain the hard copy of the managing agent's agreement and perhaps the current tenancy pack? Can't make that decision for you. Certainly something that you, as we suggested, get some advice from your auditor. I also want you to think about implementing that rent roll schedule monthly. Build it into your end of month processes after you've done the archiving, to make sure that there's no properties that you're currently managing that you aren't collecting commissions on where you should be. That will help you with that as well. So that's we're coming up to 10 minutes to 10. I'm running 10 minutes early, which never happens for me. Again, I'll just pause if I may. Dee, have we got any questions before I wrap up?
Hi, Nathan. At this stage, we have no questions.
Great, fantastic. So just in wrapping up, let me just give you an overview of where we are and where we're going now. Again, last session we looked at the application of the 4-quadrant model. We gave you some tools to help measure capacity, and in a nutshell, what we want you to start getting very clear about is having the right people swimming in the right lanes in your business. Just a reminder that the tools that we are giving you will not help you just now, but they will stick with you for the rest of the life cycle of your business. And as your business grows, you can certainly come back to those tools from the last session to remeasure capacity and make sure that you've got the maximum leverage you can out of the red quadrant or through technology. In this session, we said, well, it's all very well to apply the 4-quadrant model, but if we've got a people-dependent business, quite simply, that won't work. So what we've given you is the tools to be able to set up a control system environment, which means anyone in the business can talk to any landlord or any tenant and feel comfortable and confident of being part of a continual conversation. It means when these are implemented and up and running, if someone's away from the day, for the day, someone else can jump in. So you've got a property management person going on holidays, someone else can jump in and do their job, which is fantastic in a truly systems-driven business. I was having a conversation with a leader, as it turns out, just the other day, and what they've implemented into their business, and they've been doing this for quite some time now, is that when any team member goes on holidays, assuming that they're returning on a Monday, on the Sunday night, the leader rings and says, Dee, just letting you know that, how was your holiday? Did you have a great time? We're looking forward to having you back tomorrow. I just wanted to ring to let you know that everything's been done for you while you've been away. And there's only 2 emails, which are FYI sitting in your inbox. And when you come back tomorrow, we'll have a quick morning tea to say welcome back, and you can come back stress-free. All the work's been done. That's a truly systems-driven business, isn't it? So where we're going to in the next session is we're going to talk about standards and measurement. So this is where we're going to look at data to support some of the, we're going to look at standards, I should say, to support some of the things that we've been through, some of the big rocks in the last 2 sessions. So in that vacate to lease control system, we're going to look at standards and give you the tools to set standards around when those actions need to be finalised. And then we're going to give you a reporting tool to help you measure the operations in property management against those standard benchmarks. What we find then is businesses who have that up and running have extreme data intelligence. They know exactly what's going on with every part of the business. Again, we are introducing a KPI dashboard to help house a lot of that data in offices so everyone can see what's going on with arrears, with leasing, with maintenance, with routine inspections, vacating a tenancy, and the other big rocks that we look after. That helps to do 2 things as well. It helps for the leaders to be able to give accurate feedback on what's happening in the business, but it also allows the property management people, our team members, to see at a glance exactly what's going on in the business. And that's what we're striving for is transparency, accountability, and a systems-driven environment. So that's where we're looking at, that's where we're headed, I should say, in the next session. And then after those sessions, what we're going to have a look at are the 7 big rock processes in property management. We're going to show you how to do them easier, faster, and better. And we're also going to give you documents such as flowcharts to help document your systems in the office as well. I don't know about you, but I haven't read a policy and procedures manual in about 20 years. About 20 years ago, I tried to write one and I was 3 months into it and I was pretty much ready to end my life. I was so bored. So what we've worked out at Red is policy and procedure manuals don't work, but with some really fast, easy, nimble tools like flowcharting, you can quickly document the 7 big rock processes in property management so everyone knows how to do maintenance or how to do vacating and ending a tenancy in your business. That's where we're moving to. Between now and our next session, our coaching team will certainly be in touch with you. They will ring you over the next week. If you've got any questions that you need help with prior to that number, don't hesitate to contact our 1300 number and our coaching team will certainly be delighted to help you. Folks, that's all we have time for today. I thank you for joining us and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great Tuesday. Bye for now.